It had been a day full of challenges, all of which Rene had met successfully, and when he stepped through the front door, he was brimming with confidence. By this point, he knew there would be some kind of trick involved, and knowing this, he felt sure he'd be ready for it. On page 55, by the way. He found himself in a brightly lit room with a pitch black wall. The front door, which Rhonda had just closed behind him, had no knob on the inside and was likewise painted black, so it blended into the wall. The room was rather cramped, perhaps 6 feet wide and 6 feet long. Kate would know for sure, he thought, and was entirely empty. Not counting the nearly invisible front door behind him, it had 3 exits, to the left, to the right, and immediately before him. These doorways had no doors in them, and the rooms beyond were unlit so that Rene couldn't see into them. Are we expected to walk into dark rooms, he wondered. This is going to make Sticky extremely unhappy. But he was only thinking of Sticky to take his mind off himself, for the prospect of groping around in the darkness intimidated him more than he cared to admit. Well, he said aloud to bolster his courage, there's no time to waste. So here goes. He plunged through the doorway ahead of him. This ought to be the most direct path to the rear of the house, and, as if by magic, seemed to walk into the very room he had just left. It was cramped, brightly lit, painted black, and he could see a dark doorway in each wall. What in the world? He said, turning to look behind him, then, in confusion, turning around again. At once he realized his mistake. If he hadn't turned around, he might have kept his bearings, but now he'd lost them. He was in a maze of identical rooms. Everything looked exactly the same in every direction. His confidence was quickly draining away. Now think, he told himself, when you enter a room, its light must turn on automatically, and when you leave, it goes off. But there are light switches by each door. Perhaps if you throw a switch, the light stays on. It might be as simple as that. With a quick inspection of the nearest doorway, however, this hope vanished. What Rene had supposed were light switches were only decorative wood panels. He was about to turn away and try to retrace his steps when it occurred to him the panels themselves might be important. He took a closer look at one. About the size of a playing card, the panel had 4 arrows etched into it, pointing in different directions and painted different colors. The blue arrow pointed to the right, a green arrow to the left, a wiggly-shaped arrow, a wiggly-shaped yellow one straight ahead, and a purple one down. Of course, Rene thought, feeling foolish. The arrows weren't for decoration. They were meant to show the way. But which was he to believe? After going round to every panel, he was no better off. 4 doorways with 4 arrows, each meant 16 arrows to choose from, and there was no apparent pattern. Rene racked his brain. Should he follow the green ones? Green arrows on a traffic signal mean go, but perhaps that was too obvious. Perhaps the red arrows were the ones to follow. Perhaps that was the trick. Yet, that hardly seemed fair. What if he'd been colorblind and couldn't even tell the difference? No sooner had this occurred to him than he knew the secret. What's the secret? Anybody know it? Anybody figure it out? Just seeing if there's any super geniuses in the class. I have no idea what the secret is. All right, let's keep going then. Running his finger over the carved arrows in the panel before him, Rene smiled. The only one you could follow, or the only one you could know by touch, would be the wiggly-shaped one. What was that? What was it that Rhonda had said to Kate? You should all be able to do it with your eyes closed. She did say that. It had seemed she was offering encouragement. Actually, she was offering them a clue. Even in the dark, even with his eyes closed, Rene could feel the panels with his fingers and find the wiggly-shaped arrow. Just to be certain, he hurried around the room, checking the panels. Sure enough, though the other arrows followed no particular pattern, the wiggly arrows all directed him toward the same door, the one whose wiggly arrow pointed straight ahead. Rene took a deep breath, hoped for the best, and charged through. The next room looked exactly the same, but this time the wiggly arrows indicated the door on his right. He took it. By the time he'd gone through 10 rooms in this way, Rene had no idea where in the house he was. He might have been at the front door again and would not have known it. Or he might be in the very middle of the maze. And with the walls painted black as they were, If all the lights were out, he would be in utter darkness. Suddenly, he wondered if they intended to turn the lights out on him as part of the test. The thought started an uncomfortable flutter in his belly. But just as he began to worry, he entered a room and stumbled smack into a staircase. With a shout of triumph, he raced up the stairs and onto the narrow landing and found the bronze bell Rhonda had told him about. And he rang it. There was a sound of quick footsteps coming down the stairs. Then a door unlocked and out came the pencil woman with a stopwatch in hand. She examined it and said, 6 minutes, 14 seconds. Is that good? Renee asked. Without answering, she said, please close your eyes and stand still. Something about this made Renee uneasy. Had he done so badly? Was this meant to test his courage? He did as he was told, closing his eyes and bracing himself as best he could. Why are you flinching? The pencil woman asked. I don't know. I thought maybe you were going to slap me? Don't be ridiculous. I could slap you perfectly well with your eyes open. I'm only going to blindfold you. Having done so, she led Renee down the stairs again. With her hand on his shoulder, the pencil woman guided him back through the maze into the first room, where she removed the blindfold. Starting the stopwatch, she said, please go ring the bell again. This time it was easy. Renee trotted through the rooms, glancing at the panels for guidance, and in a few short minutes had rung the bell again. The pencil woman came up behind him, reading her stopwatch. 3 minutes even, she said. She led him up the stairs into the sitting room and pointed him toward a sofa. Does this mean I pass? We ask you to complete the maze a second time to see if you've actually solved it. We needed to make sure you didn't just come upon the staircase by luck. If you've discovered the secret, you should be much faster the second time around, which you were. Therefore, you seem to have solved the maze. Therefore, you pass. Therefore, interrupting herself, she took a cracker from her pocket and ate it very quickly, as if she hadn't eaten in days and couldn't wait another moment. Renee cocked his head curiously. But why did you have me go through again when you could have just asked me? I could have told you the secret, you know. You'd be surprised how few children have pointed that out, said the pencil woman as she moved toward the door. You mean you wondered whether I'd noticed that? The pencil woman winked. And now we know, don't we? She hurried from the room, leaving Renee alone on the sofa. He was getting used to her abrupt entrances and exits. Still, it was strange to find himself in an unknown house, sitting on the sofa by himself. He looked around the room. The walls were lined with books, many of them in languages he didn't recognize. In one corner stood an old piano, in another a marvelous green globe. Renee went to look at the globe. If the others took as long as he did to finish the maze, it would be some time before he had any company. He might as well entertain himself. Okay. We'll start right there. Stop right there.